This is the Slots and Sockets podcast, episode number 102. I am one of your hosts, IRD Moose, and my partner in crime. We didn't hear that at all. That was so
Turbo
quiet.
Penguin, sorry.
You're not usually such a quiet penguin.
I know. I'm a little quieter than I have been in the past. I apologize.
Yeah, that was almost silent penguin.
It was like silent penguin. There you go.
Yes, silent but deadly. So, all right.
How's it going? Been a bit.
It's going. It's been a bit of an adventure. Still kind of struggling through the home renovation space because today's in a haze of tar because it was hot mop day. Hot mop. Everybody loves the hot mop guy. Do
you really love your hot mop guy? Like,
I mean, you kind of got to, because he's the guy that keeps your shower from leaking.
Move in together or something?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, not that. Like, he's a good hot mop guy. He did a good hot mop.
Okay.
And you just got to respect the game.
Okay.
Speaking of respecting the game,
yeah. Intel's
sticking with the old game of Raptor Lake.
Yeah. Their VP of and general manager of Intel came out and said that Raptor Lake was still going to be around for some time. And that's probably because if you look at it from the review perspective, as the 270 and 250K plus were well received from a value proposition, and from a performance proposition, the 14th gen still is very much there. It's very clear that these products were not designed to completely just kill those other old pieces off. And they said that there would be more hybrid systems where you had DDR4 and DDR5 options to use. And I think that Intel really likes that. And, if you look at it from the DDR4 side of things, the truth of the matter is I can buy a 14900K, buy it new. I can buy it from Micro Center. I have a couple of options for motherboards, and use DDR4 RAM. And if you look at it from just DDR4 RAM piece, AMD doesn't have much of a response. I mean, the 5800X3D is not being sold. It's not being produced. And so from that perspective, it is the fastest DDR4 system out there that you could buy new. Now, I don't necessarily know if it would make sense to buy those systems. But system integrators are, I'm sure, loving this because it allows them to buy a cheaper product on the DDR4 side and to have a more budget option, but still have a lot of cores and still have a semi-decent product.
Right.
So I think that's probably going to be more system integrators more than anything else, I think. But it's an interesting thought that they're going to continue to make 14th gen and pieces and still have that available.
Yeah, and it's kind of
makes
unusual
sense, to be honest.
I mean, given the way that the Core Ultra 200 series has performed, or more accurately hasn't performed, I think from Intel's perspective, it does make sense to keep that product line alive, even if a little bit longer, because that is a mature process at this point. But, right now, what does Intel have that has any semblance of forward compatibility? Nothing.
None.
Yeah.
No, I mean, in that,
so you're stuck with dead socket or dead socket. Like,
I mean, this is, and let's be honest here. Let's look at the 14th gen. Let's say you decide to go that route, right? Not only is it dead, like you're not going to get any future performance. right? But now you've got and put money into DDR4 that if you wanted to upgrade, let's say you wanted the next gen, any form of upgrade at that point is going to require you to now buy new RAM.
Mm-hmm.
Now you could take that system there, but if I were to buy a system with a 7800 X3D right now, I would be getting DDR5. And if I wanted to upgrade that to the 10,000 series or whatever AMD is going to call the next desktop chip, I would already have a motherboard that works. I'd already have RAM that works. And it's just as far as switching out the processor.
Yep.
And that's the challenge that Intel has right now is that all of their options are dead. And they know this, and people know this. The question is do we think that people will continue to buy these knowing or not even knowing or caring? Because like a system integrator, if they say, yeah, sure, we can build you a DDR4 system with a 14th gen 14700K,
Mm-hmm.
and it's $300 cheaper, and people who are going to buy that are like, whatever, sure, whatever. It's the cheapest one out there. It's still 14th gen. It's and then you sit there and say, what do you mean I have to buy everything brand new? The
Yeah.
only thing that I can keep is my power supply case, and you're
Uh,
limited to upgrade op. No, let
I
me rephrase it.
mean,
You don't have upgrade options.
yeah, you might not even be able to use the power supply if you buy from Dell
So,
or the
I mean, that's the
case. So
challenge. I mean,
yeah,
that's the challenge right now that Intel has. Um, and why the honest truth is I still don't see these selling well. I think this is probably a play more on the system integrator side than anything
maybe.
else.
Yeah.
Um, I just I don't know. I'm interested to see. I think it's a good product. I'm questioning how well it's going to sell.
Yeah. Oh well, no, and I think the 200 plus series is a decent CPU. I think they finally came out with something acceptable. And 14th gen with the current BIOS patches in place is
Okay, well, hold
perfectly
up. Let me
acceptable
let
as
me just
well.
say this.
But
I think the positive reviews that we're having for the 200 series, the
mm,
50K plus and the 70K plus,
yeah,
let's be honest. The reason that we're saying that those are good is because they're at a good price point.
right.
Had the 285K released and been cheaper than it is,
Hmm.
it would have been a good product
Yeah,
because it would have been priced accordingly. Okay.
yeah.
But the 285 was, and the 265, all of them
Hmm.
on the first initial run were too expensive. And what they failed to do the first time, they fixed, but it doesn't still help that they were still losing money. And that's the
Right.
problem that they have here is that it's not that the 285K was a bad processor.
Hmm.
It was a bad processor because they wanted stupid amounts of money.
Right. Right. Yeah, and a lot of times, what is it that we say often? Well, I mean, to be fair, the 285K did have some performance issues as well. It didn't really significantly outperform the parts that it was going head to head with on AMD's side,
I mean, here's the problem.
and it was more expensive.
The 285K was $620,
Yeah,
whereas the 9800X3D was 480.
yeah,
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 the 285K got spanked as it should have.
yes,
What should have happened is had they released that, okay, sorry, the MSRP was 589, so it was 590.
okay,
Okay, so that was
whatever.
the
We'll call it
25K. You
600.
couldn't find it
Yeah,
anywhere.
yeah,
Okay, they didn't. It was a paper launch, but
right.
then the problem is that everyone looks at me like, you want me to spend $110 more for less performance,
Yeah,
and that's the problem that they had. So this time around, why are we all talking? It's great. It's three, the pricing's great. Had they had the price of the 285K would have sold well. I think the problem is had they priced it correct, they would have had all the demand,
Yeah.
yet they couldn't have actually supplied parts. I
Right.
don't think they had enough on hand to actually sell these things.
Yeah, you might be right on that. I mean, the pricing game with the 285K was really weird. Realistically, that CPU should have been 450 at the absolute max.
Mm-mm.
And,
Not
you
compared to
know,
the 9800X3D.
well, the 9800X3D was what? It was 499, wasn't it?
480, 480,
480. Yeah.
479 was
Um,
the actual price.
okay.
So,
I think
that's
450
the
for the
problem is
285K
that
would have been fair.
285K for the price point
Mhm.
would have had to be about 399.
That's, yeah, okay, that's fine.
Even then, I don't know if that would have sold well
Sure.
because the behind the scenes rumors and Intel never really came out and said that there was any support for it. And the notion is the 14700K was actually at release still faster. And that doesn't include the 14900K, which was even faster than that.
Right.
And so it it was a bad launch and a bad price and a product that wasn't great.
Yeah.
Now they have the same performance as the 285K at the right price point, but even then, the problem is that now you're sitting there saying, yeah, but now I don't have any upgrade options, and why
Right.
would I do that? We know the 10,000 series or the next Ryzen's desktop pieces are going to be on AM5. We know that.
Yeah.
So if you bought a 9800X 3D right now, you're gonna sit there and be like, I'm good, I'm fine,
Yeah.
no biggie, because
Yeah.
I know when that one comes off, I go buy it, $400, bam, I can sell my old one for say $350, and it'll cost me $200 to
Yeah.
upgrade, and it'll
And
be a sizable jump.
there's always the chance that AMD may keep its 4 generation pattern up, and we'll see the 11,000 series or whatever comes after the next series of CPUs on AM5 as well.
And
Um,
AMD
we've heard
has
it both
a
ways.
path of having long socket life.
Yeah. And
So
well,
if
I
they
mean,
continue that,
Intel at best was 2 generations most times for sockets. Like
if
you'd
you were
be
lucky.
lucky. You'd be lucky to get. I think there was one instance. I don't remember for sure what it was, but I think there may have been one instance where there were 3 generations on a socket. But I I couldn't tell you what socket it was. I couldn't tell you what chips it supported. It might have been Alder Lake and that whole generation. I don't know. But AMD recently, yeah, they're still making AM4 parts, for crying out loud. And it's been what, 3 years since AM5 came out? 4 years since AM5 came out, and they're still making stuff for the old socket. So yeah, I mean,
What's crazy is that they've actually released additional
yeah,
AM4 stuff.
yeah,
When did they come out? The 5500X3D?
yeah.
Was that the one
Recently,
that's
I think it
designed for
was,
South America?
yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And
And
again,
it's
that's
like,
another system integrator part. I think that it's right in that sweet spot of dirt cheap, throw it into a thing and call it a gaming PC with a moderately competent CPU. I'm not the 5500 X3D is not a bad part, I think. Um, but it's not something that if you were building your own, you'd want to toss into your PC unless you were super super price constrained. Um, but yeah, I mean, Intel Intel just needs to stop intelling itself, and
well, and this was a start. That the
yeah,
270 and the 250K plus was the start for them to realize that their products were crap and that they absolutely had to change how they price things. So
Yeah.
what I would say is I think this is a positive thing. Now, the loaded question is as they gain performance and maybe gain back some of this advantage, okay, the loss, um, do they have the ability to not jump back and gouge consumers and still come on the value side? Because the honest truth is they need to be on the value side for quite some time.
Yeah. Well, not just on the value side, but they also have to deliver reliability and performance for a few generations before people will trust them. So they kind of have to fire on all cylinders and have uh three successive winners before I take them seriously again. 13th and 14th gen, and even to some extent the 12th gen was just an absolute disaster. And they got to dig out of that hole by providing good value, good performance, and systems that don't shoot themselves in the head progressively. So moving along, we have our next story. Which one were we going to go with, Turbo?
Oh goodness gracious. What do we want to talk about next?
I apologize. I completely forgot what we talked about before the show.
I
This is
know.
a scuff episode.
Oh,
Well,
Steam OS.
yes, Steam
Okay.
OS.
So, we want to talk about Steam OS. We know Steam OS is out there. So, Steam is Valve Steam Deck got an update, a pre-alpha update, the 3.8.8. And in that they added a ton of bug fixes and stuff for desktop and expanded out support hardware for desktop and discrete graphics, and specifically on resolutions and refresh rates and a whole slew of just fixes,
Mhm.
um, with that. And so, we know that they're getting close, onto this. I think that there's probably enough sentiment in the gaming community that people want to just be done with Microsoft. Um, and I think Valve realizes from a business perspective, it makes them a ton of sense for them to spend some time and money on getting away from Microsoft. Because
Yeah.
if all of a sudden, if you force everyone down that rabbit hole of must use Microsoft, um, it could be an opportunity where Microsoft could try to take away market share by not allowing Steam to sell, or putting Steam between a rock and a hard place on how they distribute
Right.
their content. And
Right.
so I think Valve and Steam are really looking at this saying, okay, how do we ensure that we can continue the business that we do have long term? And I think that's where the Steam OS really is going to slot in. And I think that I think the general consensus with gamers is that Microsoft is still crap. Nothing has changed.
Yep.
Nothing will continue to change. Um, so that's going to be important for them. I think that we'll probably see Steam OS maybe before we see Steam Machine.
Hmm.
Especially considering the SSD pricing is up. The RAM is still up. I don't care what people say about it. All the way down 10%, okay, 10% over, decrease after you had a 400% increase is still very big increase.
Hmm.
Um, so, but the question will be is that, how is it used? And I we talked about this. I would fully support paying Steam, to build out and expand out the gaming abilities within Linux. And I would say
Sure.
at this point, I would pay money for them to do it and do it open source. I
Yeah.
think that would be amazing, you know, and sit there and say, look, if you want to support Steam in their efforts to open it up, buy a license,
Yeah.
get some. get
I
official
agree.
support from Valve for 3 years or 5 years. I mean, the thing is that if Valve came to me and says, "Look, we're willing to do this. We want $40 every 3 or 4 years." Okay, I
Done.
would do it. I would
Done.
absolutely do it because I feel like at that point, like if especially if it's open, if they say we'll do it open source, and sit there and say, you know what, I've got a company that has the means, the desire, um, and the ability to make sure that we have an option outside of Microsoft.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think that's
yeah,
huge. I think it's absolutely huge.
there's been some news kind of in that vein from Microsoft lately that they may be starting to force Windows 11 Pro and home users on 24H2 to upgrade non-consensually to 25H2. Um, I ain't having that.
As I said,
It's not Microsoft's computer that's under my desk. It's mine.
see,
And
this is where I think and this is the type of stuff that's going to have gamers to look at this and be like, no,
yeah,
there's a way better option.
yeah,
The challenge is going to be the legacy systems out there, um, because there are titles out there that will not work with Linux, and there needs to be something out there that works. Because, like for instance, I don't think you can play Battlefield 6 on Steam OS.
that's a skill issue on EA's part that I have no interest in supporting.
But I but that's the type of thing
You know,
that Valve needs to address,
yeah,
because the honest truth is that I agree it's EA's
skill issue.
skill issue to fix,
Yeah,
but I think Valve should be the one to be smart enough to go to EA and say, look, how do we do this so that you guys feel like these systems are safe and not cheat, aren't cheating?
yeah,
And I think that's a good question. I am totally up for doing things and building software that that makes it harder for cheaters to cheat.
yeah, sure.
Cheating has no right in any multiplayer game, and I really think it's up to the developer, not a third party. If somebody like Serious Sam wants to enable cheats, then they should be able to do it for a
Yep.
single player co-op game.
Yeah.
But I think that
For competitive, yeah, absolutely no cheats.
uh,
It should be clean.
absolutely.
And
So
you know what we can guarantee it's not right now? It's not freaking clean. So EA's anti-cheat crap and refusal to include Linux is a whole bunch of BS.
the problem that I have is it expensive as it's going to be. It might be that people are pushed into these machines like a Steam OS
Mm-hmm.
or a version of Steam machines, um, because they'll be so expensive that it's going to be hard, that outside of like economies of scale, for you to be building your own machine.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
I really think that could be an issue but
yeah,
who knows? Look,
yeah.
AI
I, I,
sucks.
I
We still
think,
all hate it, and it's killed off good products, and um, that's all I'll say.
yeah,
It's killed off good products, and it is risking to kill off continued good products if it continues on for long term.
yeah. And we're starting to see the chinks in the armor of AI. And I don't know if this is the beginning or if it's just going to keep on going or what's going to happen. But, eventually the market is going to stabilize and the part availability will return to normal. The question is whether the pricing is going to return to normal because they'll see, oh, well, a certain segment of the population is willing to pay 5 times the price what the larger group is going to do, and that's actually more profitable to do it that way. So it's entirely possible that it could go that route where, the only real option for people to play PC games is going to be a Steam machine or a Steam Deck. And, you know, that sucks. I hope that's not the case because, half of this hobby is half of the fun of the hobby is building the system to begin with. For those that enjoy that part, PC gaming is a lot in a lot of ways very similar to tuner culture, where you start bolting parts onto your MX5, and next thing you know, you're granny shifting instead of double clutching and all that fun stuff, and danger to manifold and the laptop next to you. Yeah, I watch too much Fast and the Furious. Shut up. um, but you know, I hope it doesn't stay that way. I don't think it will, because I think the companies are gonna realize that, hey, this AI stuff is flash in the pan, and we're gonna start coming back to the market. The only question is how much they're gonna try and swipe from us at that point, because every time this kind of thing's happened, the pricing's gone through the roof and stayed there. Yeah, I mean, just look at the 5000 series, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
And that
Well,
was
and I
before the
think,
AI crap.
well, and I don't know.
Yeah,
It's going to be very, very interesting to see how some of this shakes off.
yeah.
Um, but you know, I think that there needs to be some understanding that, if Nvidia and AMD work and they kill off this market, um, it's with AI bubble pops and this thing is dead, and people aren't buying that.
Mhm.
Um, they may have changed the rules for the game that they're not happy with.
Yeah. And they very much might not like the way things shake out in the future, because kind of like we were saying a few shows ago, it's starting to seem like the market is moving back toward the mainframe model, where you have a terminal locally and you pay for your internet connection, and then your terminal connects to whoever your cloud provider is, and instead of playing the game locally, it's just streamed to your terminal. I That's how computers were for the first 40 years of computing plus. Everything was mainframe based, and you connected over a serial connection to everything. It wasn't until the IBM PC started becoming popular that local processing is what took over. And you know we might we might just be going kind of back in that same sort of circle. And the vast majority of people, I could see a situation where the vast majority of people, like my mom or people who don't game, have just a basic dumb terminal that connects up to the cloud, and you're connecting
The
to a
scary
virtual
piece
machine.
about all that is if the cloud ever fails, you don't have any way of actually doing things.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is for most people these days, if the cloud fails,
Okay, let's
they
talk
don't
about
do
this
much
real quick.
anyway.
If your idea here of the being streaming client,
Yeah.
internet stops,
Yeah.
you're not doing anything.
What happens with my
Cloud,
mom
let's
when the
say
internet
your
dies?
Stadia, you
Hmm.
now have a hunk of junk and you have to go buy some new.
And I think Turbo's internet just died. All right. Well, we're going to pause the recording for now. All right, we're back. And Turbo, you were just talking about
I
what
know.
happens with your dumb client when your internet dies, and then
I pressed the
something
power button
interesting happened. You
I pressed the power button on accident on my machine and turned it off.
you killed your internet.
But
G, man.
see,
Good grief.
the problem that
But
I
yeah,
have with these thing clients is that you're wholly reliant on so many other providers to
sure.
allow you to continue to do the most basic functions. These
Yeah.
thin clients do not have the ability to do processing. The thin client's job is just to pass off the buck and let somebody else do it and send
Yep.
back the response.
Yeah. It's
And
basically a KVM for a giant server setup.
the
And
problem
yeah,
is that if you have any breaks in the chain of you getting the response, you're screwed. So,
yeah, I can see a lot of situations where it would be beneficial for most people, but to your point, there are critical things that people might do from home, um, where if you lose your internet connection or somebody leans on your power button in the middle of recording a podcast, you're kind of stuck. But I think for people like my mom, that a thin client would be more than sufficient. In fact, we could even set one up now, and she probably would never notice the difference.
right
Um,
now she wouldn't. But okay, let's
you know,
you know, right. I think that for certain people, I still make the argument, and I will still make the argument all day long. Just because someone can does not mean someone should.
sure, sure,
And that's all I'm getting at here is that yes, can your mother do this? Yes, she can. But I still don't think she should.
no,
And
I
I
agree.
think that's the um I think that's the 100%, you know, the key here is that I don't want to go that route because I don't want to get there to the point where it's like, the only people who have the ability to do their own computing are people who are elite or people who are spending crazy amounts of money.
Yeah,
Okay. It's not supposed to be a money grab. This isn't supposed to be an elite thing. This is supposed to be for all people. The internet isn't supposed to be for those people who have the most money. The
hmm,
internet's supposed to be free. It's supposed to be open. And that's my concern is if we go into those and it's not free, it's not open, it's whatever they tell you can do.
yeah.
And
Which is the
that's the
way it's
problem.
becoming now.
Like, that's what I'm getting
Yeah,
at.
and
And this
that
is
is a
why
problem.
that's important. It's
Yeah,
just like the right to repair. Like, you sit there and a lot of people will say this. People need to take all of these things really, really, they need to look at this really well.
yeah,
Because if you sit there and say, "Oh, I don't have that right," when you lose it, you're going to sit back and say, I disagree.
yeah. If you cannot
But it'll
repair
be
your
too late by then.
device, well,
Yeah.
yeah. If you cannot, the way I say it is, if you cannot repair your device or pick an independent service provider who can, then you don't own your device. That's true for cars, computers, smart
Well, just
devices,
look, well,
phones, all of that.
just look at Stadia.
Yeah.
People bought hardware. Where
You
is
can't do
that? And
anything
that's
with
from
it.
Google.
Yeah.
And that's with Google.
And
So
if
you
you
sit there and
didn't,
say, "Oh, that won't happen."
yeah.
No, it will happen. It has
Yep.
happened, and I don't think it's gonna anything to stop from happening.
No, a great example is to kind of stick with the right to repair side. There was a thermostat company in Europe that started up and they were all awesome. Everything on the app is free and blah, blah, blah. And then the company shuttered overnight. They opened up a new version of the company under a different name and then pushed a firmware update to all these smart thermostats and then said, "Oh, if you want to use your thermostat, now you have to pay us 9.99 euros a month." And one of the things Louis Rossmann did was offer a bounty to anyone who could, in violation of the DMCA, load custom firmware on those thermostats so that people could take control of their own devices. And you know what? I fully support that. And I honestly, I think the DMCA needs to be completely eliminated. Um, because it is a roadblock to so much repair because what they do is they lock everything down with these phony serial numbers and unnecessary levels of security, not to protect you, but to protect their bottom line. and they've engineered it in such a way that that security makes you a felon if you try to repair your device.
And on that bombshell.
And on that bombshell, I think we'll call it a show for this evening. Thank you all for watching, and do remember to jump down in the comments, leave us a comment, tell me how much of a goober I am, and give us a like, a subscribe, all that fun stuff. And while you're at it, take a look at Louis Rossman's channel and the stuff he's doing with the Right to Repair, his wiki, Fulu, and all of that, all of the stuff he's doing, because he has gotten laws passed, and now they're trying to screw with them, and we've got to stop that. So until next time, have fun storming the castle.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.